Okay, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the last installment of this part of the biomass webinar series.
There we go.
A few notes before we get started. Uh, we will be sending out some sort of survey instrument to you before we're launching the next series. So we would like to get your feedback on what you like about this, what you would change, and to get your suggestions for future topics or speakers. So please be on the lookout for that from Michelle in the coming, probably in the next month or two. And with that, it is my pleasure to get started, kicking us off for the last of our presentations in the series. So as you know, this series is brought to you by the Department of Energy, the Department of Agriculture through a series of grants, as well as through iRegen, which is a regenerative ag initiative for Iowa, or for Illinois, Iowa, and Indiana. And okay, thanks, Michelle. I think I got it from here. And so with that, I think we'll go ahead and welcome Billy Murdoch. So I had the pleasure of meeting Billy in person a couple years ago, and I'm delighted that he's been able to join us today. We normally talk about Miscanthus for bioenergy, we've talked about it a lot with poultry bioproducts, but this is the first time we've featured Miscanthus for landscape control in a meaningful way. And Billy represents the largest commercial plantings of Miscanthus in Illinois. So with that, Billy, thank you so much, and take it away.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll get going here. Yeah, so we have some non-traditional uses for Miscanthus, I feel like. And so I'm very happy to be here. So thank you. And sorry I was unable to make it to our last to the stakeholders meeting, but that I hopefully will be able to attend in the future. Okay. Can you guys see my screen? Do you see the cheetah? I think you can. Okay. I'm a Teams guy, so this is a little bit more different. Okay. I'm at our greenhouse today, so we actually have continued to expand. We're actually hoping to work with Agro to plant some more Miscanthus over here. But we have a couple different ways in which we use Freedom Giant Miscanthus, and so I'll give you a brief overview of kind of what we do and how we got here. So probably, gosh, back in, I would say 2017, 2018, we started using Miscanthus. Travis had approached us at actually one of our erosion control conventions that we go to every year. And I believe it was in North Carolina. And he had approached us about planting Miscanthus for filter sock. And so not everybody knows what filter sock is. It's kind of an afterthought. Nobody really thinks about it. But on anywhere we're removing more than, I believe it is now 10 cubic yards of soil, or there's a disturbance or some sort of soil disturbance, we're required to put down, or contractors are required to put down some sort of erosion control measure, whether that be silt fence, a rolled product, or like a filter sock. And so Silt Zero is a filter sock because our goal is we want to keep as much soil in the perimeter as possible. And Silt Zero is a unique product for a couple of reasons. One, we grow everything kind of right here in Illinois. Nothing's brought in. Everything that's grown here goes right into our sock. We have a partner farmer that uses a very small percentage, less than 2% for animal bedding. But all of this Miscanthus goes into our sock. And so we use up about, I don't know the exact number anymore, but it was about 150 to 200 acres at one point. I think now it's a little bit more. I should check on that at some point, but we use it all by about, we'll be out by the end of next month. So we still have some shortfalls, and mind you, we planted this in 2018. So from 2018 to now, we've continued to see year-over-year growth of the Miscanthus yields out of our field. This is a very generic thing, but anyway, the general basis of what Silt Zero is and why it's a better alternative is we see a much higher soil retention rate out out of job sites than we do other products. So just as an idea, we sent our Miscanthus into TRI, environmental testing. They're a testing company, third-party testing, and what they do is they'll run it through a series of tests to determine, what's its best use and, if it's really as effective as we say it is. And so we've had really good luck. Our main field where the our sock is manufactured at, has really a big erosion control problem when we purchased the property back in 2017, 2018. We had a lot of runaway. So much so we had to do all new drain tile and all different. So it was a whole mess. But it was being used for corn and soybeans prior to us planting on it. And the farmer who owned the property was not very happy with the yields he was getting because we would have water that would basically pool up at the back of the property and ruin all the crop. So we've had really good luck with this, and so far, honestly, we haven't seen any of that runaway occur. So this property traditionally for the last 30, 40, 50 years, some of the farmers that we're friendly with in Manuka have told us, oh, for years that field has had a bad erosion control problem. We would never rent it or plant there. And so since then that, obviously that issue has been remedied. We've also been really lucky because of the way that water runs through our property. We're kind of on a hill. And so we've seen really good yields in terms of when we're in a drought, when we're not in a drought, we really don't notice, which is really nice, as you may know. The main thing about putting Miscanthus in a sock versus a straw roll, which is, a polypropylene netting with straw inside, encapsulated in it, which basically, you're going to push. It's kind of hard. I really should show a better photo. But soil is going to is going to try to leave the property, leave the perimeter, and in that filter media is going to filter the soil and keep it inside. So then you're just going to have water coming out the other side. So we want as high of a retention rate as we can, while also not impacting the material very much. So something that's really interesting about Miscanthus is it's very light and fluffy, which makes for a very good filter media. So traditionally, I mean, our sock is around 20 pounds, 20 to 30 pounds typically for a 10-foot piece. A lot of installers in the state of Illinois and Indiana have noticed that, they don't need to spend the extra money securing the product to the ground compared to our competitors. Because once that product hits the ground and gets wet, it increases its weight by like 20 to 30 pounds at least. So I haven't done a test on that, but we really should send that in and get some testing data on that as well. But it's been a really good cost-effective way to move people out of using a plastic sock or a silt fence or doing any sort of those, older style, erosion control measures. So just want to talk briefly about our farm because it has a very rich history. And how we started is very intriguing. So we really started with one really small building, which isn't really pictured here in terms of our operation. And we planted a big section of Miscanthus, and then we called Agro back and we said, hey, this isn't enough. Can you come back and plant another couple acres? And so they did. And what we kind of discovered is that we just kept running out of room for things and the ways in which we've manufactured, because we're really like one of maybe two people who use Miscanthus for this application in the US, I believe, minus Agro. I don't know if he's here or not, Travis, but and he can correct those numbers, but we've kind of adjusted things in our farm and our facility to be what we think is going to be the best result. So we've always tried like trial and error. We're going to go in and do it this way, and when we don't see a good result, we'll change how we do it. So this is kind of a good example of that. So at the top, obviously, you see our giant Miscanthus, and then at the bottom, you'll kind of on the left-hand side, this picture kind of dictates how we originally first started filling Miscanthus. We'd fill the sock and then we would put it in these bags. And it started in rounds because that was easier. And we noticed, that was easier for us as manufacturing people to put it in there and get it out the door. Problem with this is that it's tubular. So, and it's on a truck, it tends to fall. So we've had a few incidences where we pull out of the parking lot and the pallet falls off the truck, and so we said, hey, we need to change our approach. And so this building over here, you can see where we added on, and I'll show pictures of that in the next slide. But we have 3 buildings on the property now, one of which is just a storage facility for our Miscanthus when we go to fill our hoppers to make the product. And so this is when we planted, I believe this is when we planted the remainder of the Miscanthus on the property. We had waited a little bit and then had come back and wanted to do it. And this is kind of how our process looks now. We put up a hoop barn building, and this is where we store Miscanthus. We also do a wood chip blend too. We've had some unfortunate, and I've been working with Travis on this and Dr. Heaton on this sort of thing. Every once in a while, it comes about. The great state of Indiana has decided that Freedom Giant Miscanthus is an invasive species, which is not factual. But they can choose to believe whatever they believe. Anyway, I've gone up that bridge too many times. But so we do 2 blends. We do a regular straight Miscanthus and we do a mulch. We also do a mix of both. So we do free clean dried wood chips. And that mix is what primarily goes to Indiana, just because they give us such a difficult time there. And so that's been a work in progress for the last year or so, just getting the word out. We go to all the conventions and stuff like that. And so what we'll do is we have a bobcat and machine that will go and pick up from the pile and then come into the photo on the bottom right and dump it in our hopper. And then on this side of the facility is where we actually place the sock onto the tube, and fill it on the pallet. And so this is kind of an interesting thing. There's a bunch of different thought processes beyond this. We notice it's kind of interesting. We notice a much higher retention rate depending on how heavy and how tight we make the sock. So on this line, we've maybe had, I would say, about 30 variations of this machine. And so you're not seeing the latest variation here, but every year, I swear to you, we change it up because we think we can do something better. And so, when we do that, the reason why we've separated the 2 buildings is a little bit abnormal. Kind of the normal industry standard way for doing sock filling using normal wood chips, or some people use a compost, is they just have this hopper sitting outside all the time. And so then they can just throw whatever they're filling their sock with in the hopper and move on. However, we use Miscanthus. We can't have it be wet before it goes into the sock. So we have to have it dry. And so sometimes this building, this hoop building on the upper part of the slide, is really used to let the Miscanthus dry and air out before we put it in a sock. We don't want moisture in the sock, otherwise it sweats. We get a mold issue. But we've noticed that when the pallets mold over, and that's an actual term, I'm not kidding you. You'll walk up to it and you'll see a big white thing. Miscanthus has the lowest mold growth. So it's very interesting. We haven't done much research on it, but we took a compost pallet, a wood chip pallet, and a straw pallet, and then a Miscanthus pallet, and we let them all mold up for moisture. And we wanted to see which one had it worse off. By far, the one that had it worse was the compost. And I wish I had some pictures of that because it was kind of interesting. But no, we want to keep it dry, so that's why we have this hopper in the building. And then kind of in this next piece, I'll walk you through, and I think this is better to kind of explain what I'm talking about, so I can help. But this first picture is our storage building. And as you can see, we went from using the bags to using a recycled plastic wrap and some recycled pallet strapping, which has really helped with our waste problem. What we noticed is these bags, they would just go on a job site and they'd get left there. And that killed us to us. So we were able to start doing this. And as we kind of palletized it differently into different things, we've been really happy with the result. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll see and it's kind of hard to see, but if you look closely, you can kind of see it. Those are 2 different types of sock. So those are 2 different polypropylene socks. And each one has a different retention rate. So in this case, the one on the right-hand side has about a 3 to 4% higher retention rate than the one on the left. And so as we've changed manufacturers and we also took that. So what we also did is we did the same test with the sock, but out of different fields, and we saw a completely different result. So it's very, it's very interesting. We do it like I did it 2 years ago. We'll do it in another 2 years and see what we make of it, and stuff like that. But down here on the bottom, the way we chop our miscanthus up, and I'm just keeping it very vague. Um, I'm not sure what size miscanthus gets chopped up for biomass or energy use. But in our case, when we chop up the miscanthus, we want it really tiny. We want it almost like pebble size. We want it very small. And so by doing that, we kind of create a dust. And so this is how it started. We had the one building, and we were, oh, um, we had the one building and make sure I'm not necessary.
I'm just putting some questions in
Okay.
the chat for when we
I
get
would-
to the end.
I wanted to make
Please
sure I
ignore
wasn't
them for
messing up.
now.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're okay. So we moved this out of this building to kind of reduce the dust and also to let it dry a little bit more. This is the main building we have on site, and that building was just getting really soaked and caked from the dust that was coming up from the miscanthus. So we ended up moving it into that hoop building. And we've had pretty good success with that ever since then. But that's how we started. Um, as all things, you start small. And I wanted to give an idea, a better visual for some applications. I know I've kind of skipped around, I'm sorry. But so when I talk about, for stormwater pollution prevention, this is kind of this photo on the bottom here is a great example of that. So we have a job site, which is disgusting above us. And then below us, we have the street level, we have the inlets, and we want to be able to protect those. And so pretty typically when we're doing this, as you can see, this isn't staked down. That's a 12-inch sock. So we manufacture them in 9 and 12-inch in diameter. That's a 12-inch sock. And as you can see, it stopped a fair amount of the erosion. You can kind of see where the water settled in and stopped and dried out. And so that's what we like to see. And so moving away kind of consistently as you get into the stormwater industry and if you do some research on it, a lot of the problem is we can put stormwater protection measures in place in the inlet or around the inlet, and they will get forgotten about and be in there 2, 3, 4 years down the line. The problem with that is that nobody remembers to go get them. I think we are the only company, our sister company, which does installations, is the only company in the state of Illinois that actually goes out after the job has been complete. You have to wait 12 months after the job has been complete to go and take these products out of the sewer to protect the waterway. So what ends up happening is they don't get collected, they get filled with gunk, and then the water doesn't drain, and then it causes flooding, and it's a huge issue. And so there's no immediate change in policy from IDOT or anybody to help with that change. But this is another good way to do it. And so in this example, on this specific project, we use the sock. We weren't required to have inlets put in, and so this project went well. We had a good soil return rate. They did some testing on it, and so now I believe that is the village of Bartlett. I may be wrong. There's a village up north that this project was done in. And we have a good partnership with them now, and they exclusively use Silt Zero or a Miscanthus product for stormwater pollution prevention if there's site work going on. So it's a pretty good deal. It does really make a big difference compared to the competition. And also one of our most popular selling points is that our sock, when you put it down on concrete or asphalt, it just stays there. There's no movement. So our product has been very popular at airports. Which has been really cool. So we love to, see that. And so when we work with these engineering firms, they just want to make sure stuff doesn't get flown away or get swept away with flooding. So in this case, on the above photo, this is a DOT ditch check. And so obviously water's flowing from one direction. We want to slow the water down and prevent the soil runaway while a construction company is doing work on the property. And so that's been kind of our goal in all this is, provide a low cost alternative while also protecting the planet and using a resource that's, earth friendly. So this is just some of our TRI testing data. And so we sent it to get tested back in 2019. We're probably due for another third party slope test, I would say in the next 2 years. We'll be rolling out a new sock. We were working on a sock that was it was made out of, why am I blanking? Um, it was a bio sock, so it was biodegradable. So you could put it down. It had no tags on it, no hog rings, nothing in it, and it would just degrade over the course of 12 months. And so it was a great product. And so the next test that we do, we're going to send that one in too. But so some of this stuff is, it's pretty insightful. Some of it may not make any sense. The number that we're most important looking for is looking for the average of soil retention. We want to see to make sure that the soil's not coming in. And so when village engineers work with us, we want to be able to showcase these test results because no other product that doesn't use Miscanthus can come up to this level. But a lot of interesting trends here with the different concentrations and things like that. This is kind of the same thing. This is an interesting this application down here. I just want to showcase um, dewatering, which is a huge problem in the state of Illinois. I know in the Midwest, especially when we get around wetlands and invasive areas, and you have either a natural gas contractor, or electrical contractor, internet contractor, even villages going into these wetland areas, and they need to now pump out water from the hole that they dug. We've seen great use with using silt zero stacked in pyramid format, so putting two and then one on top. And actually using that as like a dewatering pit in that area. We've seen great success with that. And so that's what they're doing down here in that bottom left photo. Some repeats, but yeah, that's it. That's all I have. Sorry, that was a little bit short, I think, but um, I mean, I'm definitely open to any questions and oh, Travis is here. There he goes. Yeah, there's this. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Hey, well, thanks, Billy. Yeah, we have a lot of questions. Oh, really should have figured out how to do some cool clapping that I don't know how to do. Oh, geez, everybody's doing it. It's great. Whoa, screen's blowing up. Um, Okay, so please put your questions in the chat or raise your hand so we can get started. One thing I wanted to kick us off with, Billy, that I think I missed is, can you clarify if it's still, do you have completely plastic-free erosion control products, or is there still some non-biodegradable substances in there?
So we do, yeah. So for socks specifically, it's a hard game to catch just because of the price point. And so we do sell it and we do manufacture it just at a very low level, about 2 to 3 truckloads a year and not more than that. It's increased some this year. Not by a lot, not like we want to see. We're kind of waiting for and I know that I'm working with Travis on this, and I don't know if he has any information on that he can share. Maybe not. Um, but I know that the biodegradable sock has come a long way, but in terms of price point, it still needs to get there so that it's good for the contractor. And we really need to get the contractors on board so that then the municipalities and engineers can get on board. But right now, our by far the best selling product is going to be with our polypropylene sock. What they do at the end of the job is they'll cut it open and they'll leave the miscanthus lay and they'll take the sock and they'll recycle it appropriately.
Okay, great.
It's not the greatest solution,
No,
but
I'm just laughing because my husband works for the a city park district and was just complaining this week about how he couldn't pick up the polypropylene very well.
oh,
So,
the netting in the,
mhm.
so if you're talking about the netting for the erosion control blanket, they probably used the wrong one. We have there's a photodegradable erosion control blanket and there's a biodegradable. And for park districts and forest preserves, they really should be using the biodegradable blanket. Especially if it's an area where there's going to be people and traffic and stuff like that, you want to see that dissipate quicker. But the photodegradable blanket does dissipate just in 60 to 80 days. It does take some time.
Great. I think Steve, are you wanting to ask a question?
I've, yeah, my question was more of the practical, what time of year do you harvest, that kind of thing?
So we harvested like March.
Okay,
Um,
same as we, okay.
yeah. We're not, no, we want it to be very dry. When it comes out of the
Yeah,
ground.
well, the drying was what caught my attention because we're finding it's down already below, 10%. It's, well, maybe 15, below 15.
Yeah, we want it as dry as we can. I don't have any information on that. I should though, somewhere.
Okay.
I apologize.
This is
And the dust was an interesting thing. We do have a manufacturer here in Cedar Rapids who's making socks. And I think he's put in some equipment to remove some of the dust. So,
Yeah, we should I've reached out to him, I think, and I'm supposed to go out there, I believe, but
okay,
the
it's a new owner now.
okay.
He's much more, he's really responsive. So,
Oh, well, if you're willing to share his contact information, I know I was supposed to go out there probably last couple months. I would love to connect with him. Hey,
sure.
um, every I mean everybody's facility is a little bit different. So I know that ours is kind of like we threw it together as we found needs and fit. So
okay. I'm looking through. I think Travis posted some information, but with some links to additional performance data. Um, I guess I think you've addressed my other question here, Billy, but you mentioned that you had really different performance from different fields.
yeah.
And so could you just clarify if you think it was something about the field or if you think that was something about the harvest or the moisture? What do you think's going on there?
Um, so out of the three times we ran the test, and Travis may have some insight into this, maybe not. Out of the three times I ran that, and it's not an official test. I mean, we have a little setup that we go through to see how, you know, what's happening and what. Um, we don't think it's related to the moisture. Um, we thought it was we think it's in between a manufacturing, um, and it's not a great change. We think it's the way it's either manufactured, um, or it could be related to just how it's chopped in different fields, or if which part of the plant we're actually getting, and what part of and what part of the field did it come from. And so we're doing some. It's not something we've let go at all. It's not always top of mind, because we're not seeing a crazy amount of difference in it. But we notice it every once in a while. And so what we're trying to do is we narrow it down as we go. And so like this year, they've already done that. And this year, actually, I think we redid it because they both had similar moisture content. Um, the only difference is that this miscanthus had sat in storage much longer. And so that performed significantly better over the stuff that I, have been taking out of my field that was in the front of my bag. So the way we bring miscanthus to the farm is we have a partner farmer, and we work with him, and we typically try to take the miscanthus out of his field first. And then as we kind of get to the end of his bag, then we'll start pulling from ours, if that makes sense. So we think it's related to just kind of how long it's stored, um, and really just the type of material. So
Thank you. Damien.
Hi, Billy. It's great to hear
Hi.
the story. I was interested by your reference to Indiana and the invasive what concerns. Is that coming from the state level or the municipalities? And if it's coming from the state, is it the Department of Transport? Is it natural resources, ag? Interested to hear that story because that's new for me.
Yeah, so actually it started out with a municipality, the village of Valparaiso, specifically. We've worked with them. They're now like okay, very skeptical. I've never experienced that. But we had a customer, we put it down, Village of Valparaiso called. Valparaiso said, "Did you talk to DOT about this? Miscanthus is banned here." And I said, "Why is it banned here?" And they said, "Because it's invasive." And I said, "Not this Miscanthus." And then, so I sent them this the weed and seed free cert. I believe it's coming down from the Department of Transportation. We did meet with them back in April in Indianapolis. I believe it was April. And so I know that they're looking forward to working with us towards, just making sure, we sent them over some data and I sent them over some of Dr. Heaton's research and some information from Travis and said, "Hey, take a look at this. Let me know what you think." And so I believe I'm waiting to hear back from them, and I probably should follow up with them. But we see them at all the storm conventions. So every time I go to one, I said, "Hey, any update on that?" But yeah, it is a common misconception. It seems to be with many municipalities and districts in Indiana. I think, to be honest with you, at one point, someone else long ago had done something similar with with a switchgrass variety, and I believe they did have a problem, which is maybe why they're a little bit nervous.
Damien, do you care to elaborate?
Maybe I don't have
So
the history there.
So the history here that Emily's referring to is 15 years ago. I was in Indiana breeding seeded varieties of Miscanthus. So familiar with the fears and so yeah, I can imagine that if you put switchgrass in a sock, then you'll get germinating seedlings, right, which you might not want in that spot. And if you were using the wrong variety of Miscanthus, then you might get seedlings germinating. So I can understand why they have a concern.
Yes.
It must be frustrating that there's not an easy path to demonstrate the value of a sterile clone in this context.
Yeah, we had they're at least they're fun about it. I think somebody else recently tried to do something that wasn't, it wasn't a non-seeded, and I think that's what kind of flew up the red flag. If I were to pinpoint exactly when all this started, I would say it would be about 4 or 5 years ago, but it wasn't us. So I don't know. We're working on it slowly but surely with them. They told me it would be a process. So we sent them down a pallet of sock in May, and I believe they're chewing on it. So I don't know. I don't know what their next steps are down there, but I know we're waiting on them.
Yeah, this is Travis here. Billy, great presentation. I just wanted to lay a couple comments out.
Yeah.
So yeah, on that front, I think we try to set up the right paperwork trail for any interested party that has that concern about invasiveness. All the fields that are used for this application are certified weed-free seed free before harvest, and it is tracked until storage and delivery to the manufacturer. We do have that certification even in Iowa and the other states where it's produced. One of the things that I think from a research perspective to help this industry is this is a large industry that's continuing to grow. I think sediment control devices is valued at about $3 to $4 billion annually. So think about all your highway construction projects. When you think about silt fence, Excelsior fiber, jute, there's quite a bit of different products in this category. The lower value products are considered your compost socks. The higher value products is considered your Excelsior fibers and jute fibers. We think Miscanthus can compete in that Excelsior and jute space. The link that I put in the chat there is some testing out of Iowa. that shows a lot of the data and performance with these socks made from Miscanthus and how they compare to Excelsior and Jute. We think of engineers would start to consider and spec Miscanthus in the projects and put us in that same category with Excelsior and Jute. It would open up a tremendous market opportunity for companies like Billy and others who are manufacturing this product. So I think with some research help and continuing to educate the industry, I think there's a lot of area to grow in this market.
Thanks, Travis. That's really helpful. I would think Rosha asked an interesting question that you may or may not know the answer to, Billy, but do the socks also reduce dissolved nutrients like phosphorus or nitrogen? Do they retain those in your experience?
Ooh, I wasn't prepared for tough questions today. That's a good one. Okay. So this is an interesting, I haven't had this conversation in a long time. The short answer right now is no.
No, or you don't have data?
I don't have data on it, but it can. I've seen rolled perimeter, or what they call a rolled, this is like the category it's in, is like a rolled perimeter. And I don't know, maybe Travis has seen that too. There was a product in Tennessee, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. And they would for jute core pricing, core logs, they would inject them with chemical that would, and some diodes and stuff to help reduce this. And I don't know anything beyond that. It's been something that's been discussed in our office because we're passionate about it. But we don't have much research, or I don't have many ideas on that, other than the fact that I do know that that was something that was brought up like 3 or 4 years ago, that this company manufactured. I think they've since gone out of business. But I know they had manufactured a product like that, and they would do some sort of injection process into the material. And it would solidify portions of it, is my understanding. Mind you, very baseline understanding. But it would solidify certain portions inside the material, and then that would act as kind of like this push and pull for certain things.
Oh, thank you. I know I was part of an undergrad project at Iowa State that looked at Miscanthus as a possible filler for edge of field denitrification approaches, and it worked. And it worked as well as wood chips because it had more surface area, probably the same reasons that you're getting, right? More retention time with the water. But I don't know that we put it was ever published or taken forward. But Travis has posted a couple documents here, both from the Department of Transportation and some water quality information in the chat that everybody should be able to download straight from the chat.
Thank you. Yeah. No, it's interesting. They have a lot of there's a lot of good things you can do with it. It's just about how fast you do them, and we want to make sure we're doing them safely and things like that.
Okay, so we have come to our time. People are welcome to stay on, of course, assuming, Billy, that you have a few more minutes. But I do want to thank everybody for attending and remind you that we will be sending out some questions for you about what you'd like to see in future versions of the series. And I think, Billy, I have a question for you in that regard too. If you were thinking about needs to help expand or enable your industry, and Travis already, alluded to some of those, what are the things that are top of mind for you that this team could help with, perhaps?
Education about it, I think, is the biggest one. We use it. I think Travis kind of laughs at us when we do, but one of our most popular uses for it is actually to reduce wind in areas in our landscape. And we've seen great success with that, but a lot of people are scared. They don't know what it is. And so I think one of the most important things that we can do is educate just about the crop, because a lot of people have no idea what it is. They get scared and then they assume things. They look it up, they look up the wrong thing, and then there's assumptions. If I could put big giant stickers in front of my field, I don't know, maybe Travis has some of those he could send out that say Freedom Giant Miscanthus. That would be great. But you know, that's one of the things that I've spent a lot of my time doing on the phone is just educating people.
I do know that, I mean, there's a lot of work showing that posting signage about conservation practices makes a big difference for how well people understand or support it. So that's a really interesting point, Billy. Maybe we could think about some coordinated signage
Yeah.
for people who have fields like this to show, yeah, to help with that education. Great. Other questions for Billy? Okay, hearing none, let's thank you one more time. I'll try to get my claps on there this time. Thanks so much for joining us, Billy. You will be contacted by someone from my team about turning your presentation into a short article, and we are working to share those articles. We'll be emailing that out to the group as well in future months. Thank you all for attending the Biomass webinar series and for the work you do. It is my hope that this helps form the foundation for teams that can take our work forward, and now we have a resource base. So unless we hear that people hate this, we will plan on having another series probably starting in January or so. All right, take care. Have a great week.